The meeting of the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Garcia has asked to be excused. Director Gokul Gandhi. Here. Director Jackson.
Present.
Director Seamson.
Present.
And Chair Herndon.
Present.
Madam Chair, for the listening audience, Director Zombor is also on the platform. And
Thank you.
Director O'Halloran.
Also me.
The Pledge of Allegiance was recited at the previous meeting. This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our secretary, Ms. Koala. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you're called upon. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the rest of the meeting using the broadcast information previously mentioned. When you're called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictate that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agendas, and minutes page of the MPS website. Now let's begin, Madam Secretary, with item 1.
Item 1 is a public hearing and possible action on Communication 2324C-03 from Lieutenant Colonel Oliver Karp on a request to modify administrative policies concerning information provided to military recruiters. The recommendation is that the board give public hearing on this item. The item was noticed for possible action, but no action is required.
The chair will now invite Lieutenant Colonel Oliver Karp or his designate to the podium. You may have 10 minutes to give your presentation.
Madam Chair, for clarity, I believe they're going to be splitting the 10 minutes up
Okay.
among multiple speakers, just so you know.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for granting me some time to speak with you tonight about an issue that's very important to me, which is enhancing the efficiency of our recruiting operations. Our goal tonight is for a rule change which would permit the superintendent's office to release the school list with the student's name, phone number, email address, and with the additional items of the year of graduation and the school attended. I'd also like to introduce my Command Sergeant Major Shatira Raming here, and Sergeant Torres. Now, CSM Raming, she's the 2IC, the second in command of our recruiting battalion, and Sergeant Torres is one of our top recruiters here in Milwaukee. Not only that, but Sergeant Torres is a graduate of MPS. He went to Bayview High School, but he'll introduce himself. You know, I understand that Army service or military service, because I'm speaking for the joint service tonight, is not for everybody, you know. And our recruiting job, it seems really simple. It's just to find those that are willing and also are able to serve. But unfortunately, it's a slog, to be frank. And the number of young people who fall into the category of able and willing to serve is at an all-time low. So we're looking for a needle in the haystack. Today's young people are harder to reach, and they don't congregate in the places where they used to congregate, in malls, at movie theaters. We don't have places for recruiters like Henry Torres to meet a young person and tell them his Army story and maybe encourage them to join the Army if that's something that they're already inclined to do. You know, few students answer their phones. Usually we get a phone number for a parent, and they don't answer their emails. Often our emails are screened when they come through. In some, it's harder to find young people, connect with them, and our youth are less aware of what a military career entails than any time in the past 30 years. It's highly demanding on our soldiers' time and energy to sort through the students to find those few that qualify. Based on the data that was provided by the Department of Student Services, there are 6,278 students here in Milwaukee Public Schools that are eligible for recruitment, including juniors and seniors. And those students are the ones that did not opt out of being on the list. And I have to commend Milwaukee Public Schools because your participation rate is apparently very, very high compared to Madison, where we have a less than 50% opt-in rate in some schools. Worse than that, frankly. You know, we only have 10 recruiters to sort through that list of 6,200 plus names. And the school lists that they have to sort through are not just from Milwaukee Public Schools. So they have many other schools that they have to work through. The Marines, Navy, Air Force, they all have that same job to do with similar numbers of recruiters. You know, what I want to do is I want to take less time to find those needles in the haystack, those several students that want to serve and that are capable of serving and can qualify to serve. I want to decrease the amount of time that a guy like Sergeant Torres has to spend to find those students. I didn't start my clock, but I'm going to wrap it up with this. My commander of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command, who covers the entire country, he's from Milwaukee. His name is Major General Johnny Davis, and he calls me on Saturdays, and he says, I want to see more people like me in the Army. He grew up off of Silver Spring. He went to Cardinal Stritch University, and he's now the commander at 3 stars, about to be 3 stars of the entire country, and he wants Milwaukee to be number one. I'll tell you what, Milwaukee right now is at the bottom of recruitment for the whole country, not just the battalion, which covers all of Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula, but just here in Milwaukee City itself, we're amongst the lowest participation rates in the U.S. military right now. So I have one small request to the board to consider today. This rule change would help our recruiters be more efficient, sorting students in the Milwaukee public school system. We simply ask that the Department of Student Service release contact information for juniors and seniors, inclusive of graduation year and school currently attended. The simple change, only adding 2 small pieces of data, would streamline our work. And I believe that it's in the board's power to make that rule change. I'm going to turn it over to CSM Raming to give a couple minutes of remarks, 2 minutes, and then I'll give it to Sergeant Torres. But please, there's many ways that I want to cooperate with Milwaukee Public Schools. There's a lot of things I could ask for, but this is all that I'm asking for tonight. Thank you very much for your time. CSM Raming.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you all today. And I just want to say, I'm a product of the Miami-Dade public school system down in Florida. So what I like to do, I like to go out and visit my recruiting stations and go out with my recruiters as they go visit, their assigned high schools in the Milwaukee Public School District. And as I travel with them, the MPS school district kind of reminds me of the Miami-Dade County School District that I grew up in. And I know I was listening to Mr. Sean from one of your previous meetings, and he talked about providing opportunities for the students here, for the MPS public schools. And I know some students, as soon as they graduate high school, a lot of them want to go straight to college. Some want to go straight into the workforce, and some even want to start their own business, whatever the case may be. All I ask for you all today is to allow the Army to be one of those options for your students here. My Army recruiter contacted me off a refined high school list back in 1997, and here I am 20-some years still serving. So I ask that you assist us by providing a refined list so my recruiters can contact your high school students using the user-friendly list. That's all I ask, and I'm gonna bring up Staff Sergeant Torres.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Staff Sergeant Torres. I'm native of Milwaukee. I'm proud to be home. I'm happy to be home. I attended Bayview High School, graduated in 2014. I had no intentions of serving in the military at all. Absolutely zero. No family support either, even if I wanted to. I was a senior in high school, right? I had a kid at a very young age. I was a senior, had a job, had to quit sports, and I had a full-time job, going to school, and a recruiter contacted me. He gave me a phone call. He called me over the phone, and to be honest, I hung up the phone on him. I said, I'm not interested in the military. Thank you very much. You don't ever call this number again. And I hung up. I wasn't even open to listening to him. I was not aware, right? So his recruiter, he came to the school, he was doing a lunchroom presentation, and he saw me, and he approached me. He's like, hey, I think I talked to you on the phone. Can you come in? And I just want to talk to you about military benefits and your career plans. And this recruiter, he asked me about my plans and what my career options were. And I told him I want to be a cop. I want to be a police officer. I want to serve. And when he made me to realize is that I had a dream and not a plan, right? Because a lot of us in high school, right, we think we have everything figured out, but we don't. And me being raised by a single mom and 5 kids, I thought I had everything figured out. So this recruiter went from being a recruiter to a mentor, to a role model. I started looking up to him. And next thing you know, I joined the United States Army, and I left for 10 years. I went to Hawaii, I went to Texas, I lived in Louisiana, and I took my family with me. My girlfriend at the time gave birth. Now I've taken my daughter everywhere I've been in the last 10 years. My last assignment in Texas, I had the choice, to go anywhere. I could have gone to Tampa, I could have gone to San Antonio, I could have gone anywhere in the nation. And I chose to come back here to Milwaukee. And I did because I'm here with passion. I want to give back to my city. I want to give back to students here because I know there's a student out there that needs the Army and he just doesn't even know it, just like I did. And that brings us to the issue, the challenge that we're facing today, which is the high school and not having the high school listed in the high school list, because we have a list of names, but we don't know exactly what these students attend. So we have 6,000 names, but we don't know what schools they're attending. So it doesn't help us or the students. We're here to provide a service. We want to help the students out, but we aren't able to. So when 7 of us in my station, we don't just have MPS. We also have Franklin, Muskego, Oak Creek. My priority is MPS as a station commander in Greenfield, because that's my passion. I want to help MPS. So please, that's what I'm asking, to allow me to help the students of MPS, because I'm not going to give up on them. I'm here for the next 3 years, and I want to help them. So thank you so much. Thank you for having us, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Do any members of the public, do we have any slips from the public?
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
we do have one member in the audience who wished to speak, and we have one individual on the virtual platform.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take the virtual platform first.
Very well. When I call you, please state your name, spell your last name, and then give your comments. John Fleischner.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, my name's John Fleissner. Fleissner's Fleissner. I'm an art teacher at Hamilton High School, and I represent high school teachers on the MTEA Executive Board. I'd like to speak against any effort to modify administrative procedure to allow more information to be provided to military recruiters. A representative, so I guess my question is like, why is the Army targeting students based on schools? I think anybody familiar with the Army recruiting practices would be led to believe that they want to specifically target students based on socioeconomic status. Army recruiting in our schools is already extremely aggressive. At one point, a uniformed Army recruiter appeared in my classroom during work time, uninvited and unwanted. The recruiter immediately began to disrupt the class, walk around the room, and try to convince kids to join the military before I could even address their unwelcome presence. I asked him to leave and informed administrations that they were wandering around our school recruiting kids. Administration was also concerned, but still, the military is already in our lunchroom and is even giving time on our school's announcements. They're already aggressively in our schools. And while our College and Career Center does a great job at helping students to look at post-high school options, no other institution so aggressively recruits in our schools. I would much prefer to see skilled trades recruiting in our schools, jobs that grant a high wage without the burden of being subsumed into the most violent institution on the face of the earth, the United States military. Military recruiters in our schools should be treated as controversial, not given free rein. At a time when the United States military is supporting the internationally condemned ethnic cleansing in Palestine, we as an educational institution have the obligation to protect our students and now allow them to be manipulated. The vision of our schools should be to build up our students to be global peacemakers with a worldly understanding that reflects our diverse and international population. We must not allow our school district to become an unrestricted recruiting ground for the most violent institution on the face of the earth. We can avoid our district's complacency in allowing unwanted calls from the recruiters. The Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbooks outlines that parents can withhold information from recruiters. Parents can fill out a form that allows their child's information to be withheld when the list, when recruiters are given the list of the students. The existence of this form should be clearly communicated to parents because right now it is not being clearly communicated to parents.
Thank you.
Okay, was that it for that one?
That was the last virtual speaker, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Secretary, we'll have the one request to speak. Ron Jansen, is that the correct name? Please come forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Ron Jansen, last name Jansen. Good evening, Chair Herndon and members of the committee. I graduated from an MPS alternative school in 2004. Kilmer South doesn't exist anymore, but one thing that sticks in my memory is how often military recruiters hung around. They'd make small talk and make promises to students about being able to earn honor, college tuition, and opportunities to see the world. A particular moment that haunts me is graduation. Recruiters were there looking to send those kids straight from high school into combat zones in Iraq or Afghanistan. I have no idea what might have become of those classmates. Now, 20 years later, as a parent of an MPS student myself, I have an opportunity to push back on this ghoulish practice. There is no justifiable reason to give the United States military any additional access to our students. All students should be able to study in school without being pursued by recruiters. There's clear evidence showing that recruiters intentionally target people of lower incomes and people of color like wolves stalking prey in our school. This proposal seeks not to improve the educational condition for students, but to, quote, streamline, end quote, the process for recruiters. Our concern should not be the difficulty of a recruiter's job, but the privacy of our students. Considering how difficult it is for parents to opt out of sharing information with the military, we should be making every effort to put a firewall between student information and these recruiters. The only process we should be streamlining is the process for parents to opt out. We must protect our children's personal information. The military already consumes a massive amount of resources. They don't need our students to. Finally, let's not forget that we all have the opportunity to raise our kids with a sense of hope for their future that doesn't involve selling themselves to the war machine. Please do not allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions on this item? Director Zambor?
Thank you, Chair Herndon. So I would agree with the two speakers that our military already gets a lot of access. They have access to our lunchrooms. They have access to school announcements. They interrupt our instructional time in our classrooms. They have more individual remark time than members of the public, and they were even somehow able to get on tonight's agenda, even when I submitted 2 resolutions a month ago that got deferred. They apparently also get email accesses, email addresses, which I hope was a misstatement in the lieutenant's comments, because I don't see it listed in the policy. I'm deeply concerned about protecting the privacy of our students. I have some more comments, but in the meantime, can the administration explain the process that military recruiters go through to get student information?
Administration.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Matthew Boswell, Senior Director of the Department of Student Services. So in alignment with policy, any military personnel that requests directory data can receive that directory data as current policy in 2 forms, at the school site or at the Department of Student Services. Upon a request from the Department of Student Services, we provide them with the student's name, address, and telephone number in alignment with Administrative Policy 8.42.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. So I guess I think that one of the problems with allowing recruiters to access the information at the school site is that it might, some of those, the process around distributing directory data at the school site might be less secure. And so I hope that we can kind of look at that, look at that policy and tighten it up so that those requests maybe always come through student services, not at the school level, because you could have a principal, you could have a lot of principal turnover, you could have secretary turnover that might not know what they are allowed to share. I have received calls from folks saying that the recruiters do kind of shop around for some of that data in the schools in a way that I don't think protects the privacy of our students. You know, as a board and district, we have an obligation to protect the privacy rights of students in interactions with military recruiters, and also to ensure those opt-out forms contain a reasonable deadline for submission. So while I take offense to the comment in the email that was attached to the agenda from the lieutenant inferring that recruiters target students from certain high schools, I do wholeheartedly agree that it would be helpful if military recruiters were able to make fewer calls. And I'm not on this committee, so I can't make a motion, but Director Simpson is my board director, and she has received many communications from me over the years as a parent complaining about this issue, and she has agreed to read a motion for this board, for this committee to consider when the time is good to do so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any more comments? Director Simpson.
Thank you. First a comment, and then I'd like to read the motion. Every year since I've been on the board, I've been contacted by parents who are very concerned and a little bit puzzled about why they're getting calls from the military to recruit their child. And I've never gotten anybody who's like thrilled about it. It's always a concern and a complaint about how this information was, fell into the hands of the military recruiter. And that happens every year. And I'd also like to reference how that policy can sometimes allow for more information to be given out than we intend because it's at the school site. I had one parent who called me very frustrated because someone on the emergency contact list was contacted, not her or her husband. It was someone on the emergency contact list, and she was wondering how that depth of access was provided. So with Director Zombor's comments and my own experience, I'd like to make the following motion on Director Zombor's behalf and as her school board representative for District 2. I would like I'd like to direct administration to notify parents and guardians of their right to withhold student information from military recruiters at least 1 week before the school year begins by mailing the opt-out form and also sending a link to the form via email, text message, and social media. And 2, bring forward a recommendation to revise Administration Policy 8.42 no later than the March board cycle to ensure all directory information requests from the military recruiters and/or institutions of higher education go through the Department of Student Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I'm not on the committee, so I can't vote on the motion, but I understand the concern is contacting students who don't wish to be contacted, and it may sound counterintuitive, but I think strengthening the opt-out procedures, if you're looking for a needle in a haystack and you reduce the size of the haystack, then there is fewer, you're just making fewer calls. And as a parent who has a high school student who receives a lot of, at the beginning of the school year, you get a lot of papers, you might sign 90% of the papers and forget about some of them. It could be an oversight on a parent's part with responding. So I think making that easier actually does make the job of recruiting easier because you are automatically eliminating families who are not interested. And I will say, not within this context, but within the context of college recruitment for athletics, I do have my email listed for my son because I do want all coaches to not contact my son directly. I want them to go through me because my son's next steps are going to be made in concert with me as his parent. So it may be frustrating to feel like it's there's gatekeeping there, but I think that is, the function of a parent, I guess. Can anyone clarify, email is not listed in Administrative Policy 8.42, so is that a data element that is currently released either from that school process or from central services?
Administration?
Chair Herndon, Director O'Halloran, the email is not listed as a directory data item. It is not listed.
Any follow-up?
So it not being listed means it's not disclosed okay, thanks.
Okay. Are there any more comments? Director Gokul Gandhi.
I am on the committee, so I feel like I just want to thank you for your advocacy and agree with everything that has been said, including our speakers. Thank you for waiting so long. It's a long meeting to wait to testify, so we really appreciate your advocacy, though.
Okay, with that, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Seamson to direct the administration to, 1, notify parents and guardians of their right to withhold student information from military recruiters at least 1 week before the school year begins by mailing the opt-out form and also sending a link to the form via email, text message, and social media. And 2, to bring forward a recommendation to revise Administrative Policy 8.42 no later than the March board cycle to ensure all directory information requests from military recruiters and/or institutions of higher education go through the Department of Student Services. On the motion as read, Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 2, action on approval of Resolution 2324R-003 by Directors Herndon and Zombor on building leases. The recommendation is that the board approve Resolution 2324R-003 with the recommended revisions as attached.
Thank you. Director Zombor, as co-sponsor, would you care to speak on the resolution at this time?
Sure, I almost thought I could leave and then almost walked out. So this resolution on building leases was actually inspired, it's funny that it's the same night as tonight about the audit. This was inspired by a previous facilities and building lease audit that was done. And so the recommendations and the resolved really come out of that audit. Some of them, I believe the most recent audit were, partially remedied, but I think this codifies that. So specifically, looking at how lease terms are developed, how lease rates are determined, how they may be adjusted to account for inflation or increased market values. I know there's been some uncertainty around capital improvement credits, and then also a closing checklist in the event a lease is terminated, and then how we're monitoring compliance. So appreciate everyone's consideration on this. I think these are all things that would strengthen policies that already exist. And also, they're recurring questions that come up a lot whenever there's a lease at AFP. And so I think this would address those questions.
Thank you very much, and I'll pass the gavel as co-sponsor to Director Gokul Gandhi. We'll just make it a team tonight.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
President Herndon.
Okay. For me, this had been an issue for a number of years since I've been on the board, and there were some audits done, and for any number of reasons, especially COVID at the time, because one of my emails is dated back to October of 2021. So this is nothing new. The objective was to make some consistency in these lease agreements, because it seems like there was a lot of differences from one lease agreement to the other. So the goal is solely to make it uniform for all, and to make some strong changes in how square footage is costed out, for example. That would be one, so there would be a degree of consistency in that. So I won't belabor it except to say this is not new. The audit was done a number of years ago. For a number of reasons, we just never got to this point, and so it's way past time to do so. So with that, I'll take the gavel back.
Great, gavel passed.
Okay. Does administration have any comments on this?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, Keith Mosley, Superintendent of Schools. On September 28th of 2023, the board approved Resolution 2324R-003 by Director Herndon and Director Zombor on building leases. This evening, I have with me Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities and Maintenance Services, to present on this item. After which, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Sean?
Thank you, Dr. Posley, Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Sean Kane from Senior Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services. And basically what we have, I do see from the resolution that we did propose with as read with the red lines in the proposed resolution. There is currently a standard operations procedure, SOP, that's in place. I do understand that there was an audit report dated back from September of 2021. This SOP has been in place since May of 2022, and it addressed all the bullet points. Our team will revisit the document to see if any updates or edits are needed. When the SOP was created, the DFMS team worked with Contract School Services, the Finance Department, our department accountant, business analyst team, and lastly, the city attorney, to generate the near 50-page document that addresses lease terms, rates, adjustments for market values, a lease template, process for capital improvements, building closing checklist, and lastly, monitoring building lease agreements.
Okay. Was this document that you're speaking of, was it presented to the board? I don't remember seeing such an item. The SOP.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director for Facilities and Maintenance Services. As far as it was, it was something, it was an audit report that we did receive, again, September 30th. And working with that department, we created the SOP. We've not heard back for a certain time from the audit department. They were then checking on the controls as part of their audit. And recently, we just heard something back, I would say, in September. So there's been ongoing engagement with the audit department. I have plenty of emails. We've gone over stuff and worked it out to get to the SOP, addressing the bullet items that are on there. And all the stuff has been worked through with the current city attorney that we're working with and previous ones.
Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I did see the revised, I think, audit that was, I think it's listed on the audit website from maybe December of 2023. And so it does address that some of the recommendations were satisfied or partially satisfied. So just acknowledging that, I think, but bringing this communication forward to AFP would be really helpful so that we can see it and discuss it, and then also understand how it relates to the leases when we're approving them, moving it forward.
Thank you. And I agree with that because at one point, audit was supposed to bring it forward. Then there were some more discussions, and then facilities and maintenance did a review and a report. And there were deficiencies identified in that report that was supposed to come back after resolution, and it never happened. So I would say that we need to review this, I think, before we vote on anything. We need to review those documents, or else we need to pass this right at this moment. Madam Secretary.
Chair Herndon, members, if this committee doesn't feel it can make a recommendation on this resolution right now, you could hold it in committee and ask the administration to come back next cycle with additional information. That would be one option. You could also forward the item to the board with no recommendation. I don't know if that would give the full board the additional information that you're looking for. But at this point, what you have before you is a resolution that hasn't been adopted yet. So
Right.
none of the directives in the resolution are binding on the administration at this point because you haven't taken action on the
Right.
resolution, so.
Thank you. Director Zumber.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I mean, can the administration's recommending adoption of the resolution, is that correct? Is there any reason that the administration feels we should not take action?
Chair Herndon, Director Zomber, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities Maintenance Services. The resolution looked to ask for information provided, identifying the criteria for the lease agreements with the bullet points in the board item. As stated, I would have to check, but I know, like I said, the audit department did receive our SOP back in May of 2022. But I believe as part of the resolution that we're looking to come back to May, maybe if everyone had a chance to take a look at the document, because it was basically stating as part of the resolution that coming back in May of the next board cycle, that we'd be able to identify and show that we've had addressed those bullet points.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the administration would welcome the opportunity to bring back what we have with a standard operating procedure and sake of not duplicating any work that has already been done. So if it's next month or whatever the situation may be, we would prefer to do that than if we could.
Okay. Director Zumber, you had your hand up.
Well, I would just say that we introduced this resolution for referral 4 months ago, and so just I'm becoming increasingly frustrated by how long it takes to make decisions. So I'm not on the committee, but I will defer to my colleagues.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
So from the discussion I've heard, I don't see any net negative in passing this resolution. I only feel like there's going to be an increased level of communication around this. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve. I'm going to make a motion to approve Resolution 2324R-003.
Okay.
May I
Madam-
clarify the motion? Is that to approve the red line version of the resolution or the original version of the resolution?
The red line version, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that would be my understanding, yeah.
And if I may, the SOP already includes this language from previous 2023, when it was presented to the audit committee, to the audit.
Chair Herndon, Director Jackson, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities and Maintenance Services. As far as I know, the SOP, the Standard Operations Procedure, was not presented at a board level. Again, this was information that was solicited and asked by the Audit Department, which was provided, that we followed up as part of that report that was done in September 30th of 2021. We provided the SOP to the Audit Department in May of 2022. Going through the process of things, they felt that doing the controls process through the next year, that was kind of that follow-up report that was provided in September recently of 2023.
I would,
Can I call the roll? Can you call them? Okay.
just a second. I know for me, one of the things was the varying lease rates, for example. Every time we got one of these leases, every time one would come through, there would be differences in them. There were some bad practices, in my opinion, in many of them. And the objective has been all along for these several years is to put some uniformity in these contracts. I personally think it's best if we proceed with this resolution to make sure that everybody is in agreement, because that opportunity has not occurred. Madam Secretary.
The motion.
We
have a motion by Director Gokul Gandhi to approve the red line version of the resolution as presented in the attachments. On the motion, Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Okay. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 3, action on a request to reaffirm administrative policies 1.01, vision, mission, core beliefs and goals, and 2.11, school district annual report. The recommendation is that the board reaffirm administrative policy 1.01 and administrative policy 2.11.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, this evening, the administration requests the board to approve reaffirming the administrative policy 1.01, vision, mission, core beliefs, and goals, and 2.11, school district's annual report. We are happy to answer any questions regarding this item.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Gokul Gandhi.
I move that we approve, the administrative policy 1.01 and 2.11 as recommended by the administration.
Okay, Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request to speak on this item, and just for the record, there were no speaker requests on item 2 either.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, will the Secretary please call the roll?
On the motion by Director Gokul Gandhi to reaffirm administrative policies 1.01, vision, mission, core beliefs and goals, and 2.11, school district annual report. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Okay. There being no further business before this committee, the meeting is adjourned.